Hey everybody, Vivian here. I just wanted to share with you a tag that I just finished. This project is somewhat shabby chic, high on texture, and very feminine. I used a new little 4.5 by 6.5 linen closet mat stack from DCWV. Um, I'm loving all of the pastel shades of the spectrum these days. So I thought it was about time to pick this one up because I have just about every other DCWV stack that's available. Here's a close-up of the clustering that I've been loving doing recently. And here's a close-up of a little gingerbread technique that I've been using on a variety of my projects recently. I have another video tutorial on my gingerbread technique. It's really easy and it adds some fun texture to your projects. You could use this effect to cover an entire card front if you wanted to. And I think the final effect is reminiscent of gingerbread roofs on those gingerbread houses you make at Christmas. So I'm going to show you a start to finish with the really easy techniques that went into making this project. And at the end of my video, I'll show you some of the other DCWV projects that I've made within the last year using some of the other pattern papers in the wide variety of stacks that they have readily available at your local craft stores. So let's get started with the tutorial. So like I said, this is the 4.5 by 6.5 inch mat stack of the linen closet. What's great about this stack is it covers the range of pastel blues, grays, beiges, and yet it's so feminine and great, I think, for projects that are on the shabby side of things. So I'm going to use my Sizzix tag and book plates die, which is quite well used, in my Sizzix Big Shot machine, which is equally well used. The great thing about this tag shape, this shape suits me perfectly. I love it. And the great thing about it with the mat stacks is that you can cut a tag shape out of one sheet of this cardstock. It fits just perfectly. So I just sandwich it between my two acrylic plates and send it through the machine. The great thing about these types of steel rule dies from Sizzix is that they're really sturdy and they cut through just about anything. So I try to collect those whenever I can, the ones that I want, which are most of them. So I sent that through the machine, and here's a cute little floral pattern. I got these Fisker scissors for free. They sent them to me because I'm a fan. Isn't that great? And they're really great. So in order to create that gingerbread effect, I just cut a little strip, and I'm sending it through the machine so it matches the dimensions of my tag exactly. Some of you may be wondering what that little foam square is in the middle of my tag die. And that's just to make sure it's easy to remove your cardstock once it goes through the machine. Okay, so this is a Martha Stewart doily lace punch that I recently acquired on my Shabby Chic roll that I've been on. The great thing about punches and dies is that if you're a crafter, you have tons of paper, I'm sure. And the thing about the punches and the dies is that they really have limitless potential. You can use them over and over and over again for just such a variety of effects. So I think they're just a great investment. So I punched my little tag piece, and I also punched a strip from the scrap that was left. I'm going to slice it down at 1 inch. And the reason it's not the same width as the tag piece is because I prefer to cut it long and then trim it once it's adhered to the tag base. This is a little score buddy. It's good for card makers. It's a nice, small, portable size. And it's got that pop-out bone folder, which is great. It pops out and it pops in. And I'm going to score it at 5/8 of an inch. But really, that's your designer's choice. How wide you want that gingerbread piece to be. I think for balance in my tag shape, 5/8 seems to work for me. So I distressed all the edges of the pieces that I have so far with my blending tool and some Tim Holtz tea dye distress ink. The great thing about these distress inks is that, you know, when these papers all coordinate very nicely, but when you have a collection of papers for your project that you feel don't quite gel 100%, just the act of distressing all the pieces and putting them together really adds a sense of unity to your project. Here, it just bumps it up even that much more. And you're going to distress your tag shape as well. Just to give it a feeling of authenticity, I extend that distressing just a little bit farther in when I get to the corners. Next, I simply applied some snail adhesive to my gingerbread pieces and folded in that crease that I created with my bone folder and adhered those pieces to the top of my tag. For this second piece, prior to adhering, I actually trimmed off maybe like 1/8 of an inch more off the top because I wanted it to fit just a little bit more snugly up against the first piece that I adhered. And just in case you're confused, I just want to make sure you're aware the adhesive was applied to the area above the score line, because the area below the score line is going to be raised and folded upward and add that interesting texture and shadows to your project. So here I can trim it just exactly, and this is where Vivian gets a little bit OCD. So I went in and just distressed those edges that were freshly cut, and this is what our tag looks like at this stage of the game. It's a really great way to add just a little extra embellishment to any tag that you make. And see that dimension? When you see it in the sunlight also, it casts these really interesting, pretty shadows onto your tag. I picked up this really pretty postage stripe washi tape from Michaels recently. It's Recollections, and it's in this really pretty aqua color that matched my linen closet pattern papers really nicely. So I just added a little strip of that. I used Hampton Art stamps for this project, 2 sets of their clear stamps, and I just am crazy about that heart. That's a Hampton Art Doodlebug Icons stamp set, and I keep reaching for that heart. The shape on it is just adorable. So I'm going to stamp that with some Frost White ink. This is a pigment ink from Clear Snap. As you can see, it's well used, but it's still working for me, so I'm not going to open up a new one quite yet. And just after using my designer's eye for a little bit, I placed it there. So we're going to do a little bit of faux stitching. First, some faux stitching around the heart shape to accentuate it just a little bit. And then some faux stitching in straight lines in places on the project where I feel like, after eyeballing it a little bit, that some lines would add to the composition. Here I used a white jelly roll pen from Sakura. There are a couple different companies that make white gel pens. This one works just fine. For my sentiment, I'm using a Smile Sentiment from this brand new clear stamp set from KI Memories and Hampton Art. Isn't that Instagram photo frame adorable? And the camera with the heart. I'm just going to be using the Smile Sentiment this time. but I'm really excited about this stamp set. So after peeling off the clear acrylic stamp, I'm just lining it up along the grids on my acrylic block. And then I'm going to stamp that with some clear snap chalk ink in Chestnut Roan, which I think is going to become one of my new favorite brown pigment inks. I think I'm going to have to get a full size of that one. And so begins the process of creating our own handmade embellishments with paper, our DCWV papers, and our dies. These are the Spellbinders. That's my dog. Hear it. Spellbinders Bitty Blossoms dies. There's a set of 3, I believe, and I used the large size and the middle size. And just sent it through my Big Shot machine with no tabs. I cut out 3 of those, and then I distressed the edges of the petals with some more of the tea dye distress ink to make them pop just a little bit more off the page. This extra step makes a really big difference, I think, and is well worth the little bit of effort. So this is the part that I call getting intimate with your papers. Because it's more about feeling and less about seeing. I had a couple of friends come over a few months ago. They were brand new to scrapping. And when they saw me die cut these flowers using a variety of dies that I have and assemble them and glue them, and then when they tried it, they got really frustrated because the first time, you know, it's kind of tough the first time, but with just a little bit of practice, you end up with some really beautiful embellishments that you made just with your paper and your dies that you can reuse over and over and over again. So I am very tightly rolling them. I used a little scoring tool that came with a Martha Stewart scoreboard that I got a while back, but I've seen at the craft stores, you can buy those scoring tools individually. And once I feel like I've got a handle on the roll, I pull out the scoring tool and continue rolling just using my fingers. Once you've got that rolled up and you're just at the very end, what I often do is just hold the edges and release a little bit so that the center of my bloom can open up a little bit more. I don't want it as tight as I rolled it. And then holding the flower together, what I do, some people use, you can use a variety of different adhesives to get that bloom to stay the way you want it. I use hot glue, and I just shoot it out carefully onto that part of the bloom, as so. And then that little circular piece that's left, I just push that on top. And I hold it in place just a little bit for a few moments to make sure I've got a good grip. And for this particular bloom, this is one of my newer floral dies. I fold down the petals very carefully because you don't want to rip your paper. And you end up with some really pretty vintage rosettes. And voila, you have a really, really pretty bloom. So I've skipped ahead since you guys got a very close view of how to make those. I made 3 of those, 1 large and 2 small. I'm using my Martha Stewart leaf punch to cut out a bunch of leaf shapes. I distressed all of these leaf shapes as well. And you'll see in the final result that doing this to all the pieces really does help create a sense of unity in the project. So I'm using my Martha Stewart bone folder to curl the leaf shapes. And now I can start creating a lovely little cluster at the base of my tag. This is a little bit of tulle that was left over from a project that I did for my local scrapbooking shop, Scrapbook Island in San Jose. I'm on their design team, so they send me I get to design with the beautiful assortment of goods that they give me each month, and these all go on display in the shop. And once a year, I believe, they are all the projects from the design team members are auctioned off for breast cancer research. All the proceeds go to breast cancer research. And I think we just finished, I think it was last weekend, an auction, and I think I was really excited because our crafty efforts were able to go to some really good use. So you can see I just cut off a little piece of the fringed tulle and folded it up and hot glued it down in that position. I'm going to do the same thing with another piece of tulle and adhere it down as I start eyeballing where I want my embellishments to go on my project. And these are going to create some really pretty textural sprays in addition to the embellishments that we've all handmade, which will all combined give this project some nice textural punch. So if you noticed, I put some hot glue on the base of my flower and sort of adhered a leaf or two down at the same time by just placing it underneath as I pushed the bloom onto the surface of my cardstock. And then I think I just ended up using one more flower that seemed to be just the right amount. And after those flowers were adhered, I added a little stick pin. This is from Petaloo, and this was also left over from my DT box from Scrapbook Island, the last time I made projects for those guys. So isn't that lovely, that little cluster? So I felt like the top of my tag was being a little bit neglected. It needed a little bit of attention. So I just adhered a few larger self-adhesive pearls to the top. These were from the Paper Studio. And I was going to put 3 up at the top, but then I decided at the end that I'd like that one better as part of my cluster. This is a piece of mesh from Really Reasonable Ribbon. It's a nice wide piece, and I've been playing around with it quite a bit. Right now, my head's in the way, but I'm cutting straight down the middle, and I'm going to use just 1/2. And with that 1/2, I'm going to string it through the top of my tag. So I'm folding it in half. Originally I was going to use both, but they were a little too thick. Folding in half and then threading it through the back to the front, and then pulling the ends through that little loop. And then just fraying all of those little fibers to create some fun texture in my tag. I just love this mesh. There you go. I ended up fussing just a little bit, adding a few extra little touches, and my tag was done. So as I pan over the tag, you'll see all those little bits of distressing that we did really create a sense of unity in the tag. You've got little touches of aqua at the top, and they move down through the washi tape and into the leaves. And you've got nice little textures, a variety of textures throughout the tag. I was really pleased with how it turned out. And I think this is how it is for me most of the time. The final realization of my crafty paper crafting projects are so often driven by the papers themselves. I let the paper speak to me and help me determine what kind of project I want in the end. This is another project using DCWV papers, a different stack. This one was made using DCWV's Old World stack. So this is a larger cluster I created, and these are pretty much all handmade using a selection of dyes that I own and adore. They glisten in the sun because I put a variety of media onto this card project. This is a mini book I made for my mom using chipboard from a cereal box and DCWV's Spring Fling papers, along with my Hampton Art stamps and some on the edge dies from Sizzix. This is a smaller 8x8 layout that I made for a very special lady. I actually hope she doesn't watch this because it's a present for her. She's going to be having a baby very shortly, and this is part of a gift for her. It's an 8x8 layout. And this one uses one of DCWV's newer stacks. It's called Gilded Orchard, and there's lots of beautiful foiling in this stack. So every month, DCWV has a Stack-a-holic challenge, and they encourage all their fans to participate. They give you a sketch for a layout and a card. I've been participating in the cards a lot. This was my entry for the October challenge, which just completed, or is just about to complete, and I used the latte stack. Do you recognize the flower die? Dies and punches, guys, really useful. Here's a little detail of the blooms that I made, and applied some Concord grape, is it, distress ink? A little bit of purple twine in there. I wrapped that around the banner shape. Really love the font on that stamp, and I think I'll probably use it on a lot of my Thanksgiving cards. This was my card entry for the month prior, so this was for September's Stack-a-holic challenge, and I'm happy to announce that this one was one of the top 10 at the DCWV blog for the month of September. I used the Trade Winds stack for this one. Really beautiful nautical elements in that stack, and foiling, which I really love, and some preppy shades, muted shades, chevrons, just love it. This was my card entry for the month prior, which was for August, for their Stack-a-holic challenge, and for that one I used the homespun stack. So you've got a lot of sorts of fiber elements in the pages, like linens and cottons and embroidery and stitching, and some nice muted sherbet colors. I actually hand cut that bloom, and I have some tutorials available on my blog. Oh, my blog's at contadinak.wordpress.com, and I've got a listing of all my tutorials there on my tutorials page if you'd like to check them out. So this was a close-up of my funky little bloom. This is a layout that I did for Hampton Art, and it posted to their website, I think, in the late summer. I used a type of art stack, which has some really bright, funky colors and typography. Really love that stack. Very modern. And there's actually, that's where the tutorial is for those funky flowers that I make. And you can see this is featuring my crazy little pupusa. She's a dog I rescued off the streets of East LA right after she had been hit by a car. Now she has the best life you could possibly imagine, and this layout documents in a sequence of pictures and little mixed media canvases how we are acclimating her to the pool. So if you look closely, you can see she's very ambivalent in the first and second pictures. But later on, she's rolling around in the grass and zipping around the pool because she feels so good. So that's why the title is Me Siento Fresca, because that means I feel fresh. And here's a little close-up of the bloom. So, for all my crafty friends and followers, I'm a real advocate of playing along with these Stack-a-holic challenges. It's so easy to get going and get your crafty mojo going on because they offer you a sketch. It's not like you have to start from zero. And playing along is so much fun, and seeing what other crafters are coming up with the whole variety of papers that they've got is also really fun and inspiring. Um, if you haven't followed me yet on my blog, please come join me over there. It's contadinak.wordpress.com. From there, you can also like my public Facebook page. There's a little link to that. If you haven't subscribed to my channel here yet, I promise you there's going to be lots of inspiration to come in the next months, and you don't want to miss out. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you subscribing, and really welcome all your comments and feedback. So I hope to see more of you soon. Thanks again, and happy crafting. Bye.